All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Inside Sports Studio. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. It's time for another edition of Football Talk. Only 4 weeks left. It's getting down to crunch time, so let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about who are the best rookies. We're going to talk about a few record breakings. But before we get into that, let me go ahead and bring on my co-host, the main man, one of the best writers, one of the best bloggers, one of the most intuitive football minds you will find anywhere. None other than Chris Lardieri of FootballNation.com. Also, I do suggest that you follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. That said, here's the man. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, every week I say the intros are great and I appreciate them, but that was top notch. Thank you. To be just showered with such accolades means a lot to me. So I hope my faithful readers out there feel the same way. But as always, thank you, and thanks for the sobering reminder that there's only 4 weeks left in the regular season. Let's hope the playoffs are as good.
Yeah, probably so. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and give you your props first, though. Football Nation, FN Follies, what can we look forward to?
This week's column, which will be appearing on the website Thursday. I had to do it, had to get a little, not so much political, but tackle a hot button issue that had some political overtones. Basically, telling Bob Costas to stick to talking about football in light of the tragic murder-suicide with Belcher in Kansas City. He got on the air, went off on a kind of a 90-second rant about gun control, and essentially what I say is, you know what, it's great that you have that opinion and all. Save it for Meet the Press and MSNBC. A little too soon. It was a tragedy. I admire Costas for having his opinion and his proverbial First Amendment rights per se. I know it's sports. He's not protesting the government. But, if you're going to do that, let's talk about the facts of the matter. Talk about the domestic violence problem that's going on in the NFL, along with what we're seeing now as a second high-profile clear case of mental health issues with an NFL player, the first one being Junior Seau committing suicide. Talk about that, I just don't think it's the forum at halftime on Sunday Night Football to talk about it. He mentioned Jason Whitlock's column, and what amuses me is Jason Whitlock, while a fine writer, he's starting to remind me more and more of ESPN Skip Bayless, and we all know how no one really likes Skip, but Whitlock loves throwing things out there so that he gets the attention. Whether he believes it or not, I don't know. I give him credit if he does, but they are the types, he and Bayless, to say, you know what, bad publicity is better than no publicity. And Costas gave him a ton of free publicity for his column on a national telecast, one of the top-rated network TV shows in the country. And who gets all the flack for it? Bob Costas. So, you know what? I've got my own opinions on gun control and what happened, but as I say, we watch football to get away from the sobering realities of life. I want a political discussion. I'll go watch one of those channels. So, I probably should have thought it out a little more. I know he went on Dan Patrick's show the other day and kind of retracted it and said he should have done so, but you know what? I just want to watch my football. And then I hit on a few other things like Mark Sanchez taking notes on the sidelines, Phillip Rivers throwing away another game, Phil Simms stopped talking about using the word football during Sunday's Steelers-Ravens game. So, a little more of the humor towards the back end of my column. But, I kind of went off on a rant here, but that was the hot button topic of the week, and I just figured, gotta get it off my chest for once when these softballs come over to play it.
All right. Well, you know what? And does this, just to put a capper on that, as far as gun control goes, people talk about what would happen, gun control, handguns, and all that. We're a gun culture, though. There's always been a lot of guns in this country of the United States of America. I think what really needs to be addressed is why in the last 30 years lives have become so cheap. That's really, there's been some type of societal change, but we don't want to get in that. We could discuss it for at least 45 minutes here. So, as you said.
Oh, I know, and you know what? There's a time and place for that, but I want to talk about Charlie Batch crying on the sideline. That's what they pay me to do, right?
Exactly. So, you know what? The Steelers, coming up big against the Ravens this week. We talked about it, but, the Ravens, it seems like they just can't get a break. And that would have been a chance for them to really bury the Steelers, almost seal the division up outright. Instead, the Steelers are 2 games behind them, 4 games to play. The Steelers kind of have a soft game coming up this week against the Chargers, who apparently quit about a month ago, while the Ravens have to play in Washington against the Redskins, the Redskins are resurgent, just beat the Giants. They won 3 straight. And now the Ravens are going to have to play this game not only without Ray Lewis, but without T-Sizzle, Terrell Suggs as well. So tough break for the Ravens in that game.
Yeah, what they thought was a gimme has now become one of the more compelling matchups of the week, and bragging rights for the Greater Beltway / Chesapeake Bay area.
All right, and you know what? What about that San Diego Chargers game, though? And I watched that game. I watched the final drive. The Chargers had a chance to beat Cincinnati, and coming down the stretch, that was just horrible. I mean, that final drive, was Rivers even really, were they even trying to score on Cincy? It seemed like they came down just going to kind of throw 3 passes and get off the field here.
Yeah, we were talking about this in pre-production. I literally, because the game was blacked out, I had the Steelers-Ravens game on, went into the garage, came back into my living room. They literally just switched over. Marv Albert was starting to get a little excited that the Chargers were driving, and the first thing that popped into my head is, all right, how's Rivers going to blow this? My money's on him overthrowing someone in the end zone on 4th down. And just then he planted the ball right into Cincinnati defender's hands perfectly. And it's just like you almost know it's going to happen. And even the fans in San Diego, the place looked like maybe it was a third filled. And just, I don't know. I know LaDainian Tomlinson's made some allegations that the team's quit on North Turner. I don't know if they have, but they sure as heck don't look like they're playing all that hard, or they've really got that much confidence, or maybe they even believe that they're just not going to win. So at this point, it's getting to be psychological. And, Rivers, for all his faults, just trying to do too much, and it's almost like he's getting this little tick in his head and just throwing the wrong interception, making the wrong throw for an interception at the wrong time.
Well, you know what? I would almost, and I hate to say this, but I would have to hope that they have quit on North Turner, because I'd hate to think that a football team went out there fully motivated and played like the Chargers have been playing, because that would be really bad.
Yeah, definitely. And I know they don't have a heck of a lot of talent there, but yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And the odd thing is, I was listening to Double X 1090 San Diego sports radio station this morning, and they literally have a countdown. They were talking about there's 26 days until North Turner's gone. So, I mean, when you got that to look forward to, the apathy's probably kind of trickled all the way down to the locker room.
Right, and let's go ahead and move on from the Chargers. Of course, now the big game, RG3 and the Redskins playing against the Giants. They win that big Monday night matchup, 17-16, puts them right back in the playoff hunt. Now the other thing is with the Giants, who again could have solidified things, but now here they are at 7-5. Just a 1-game lead with those 4 games to play. But when talk about injuries, you had David Deal, who had been replaced by Sean Locklear at right tackle, and then Sean Locklear got just that's a devastating knee injury while he was filling in, and he's not going to be back anytime soon. So maybe some injury problems for the Giants too.
Yeah, that was brutal, and it doesn't help that even with their offensive line being intact this year, they really have had little or no ground game, especially the last few weeks. So, not good news. I mean, there's got to be a lot of room for concern for Giants fans right now, myself included. And kind of like I made the wrong prediction last week yet again, but as I said, the Giants do one of 2 things down in D.C. against the Redskins. They blow them away, or they have one of these games where they let them hang around too long and let them win at the end. And sure enough, the latter happened, and they just don't have the killer instinct. It's almost like they play up or down to their level of competition.
Okay, so, it's still a few weeks before they have their big matchup against Atlanta, but this week, of course, they got the Saints. The Saints still think they can make the playoffs, maybe 5-17, but the Giants can't afford to let that game slip away. We'll get into that in the Picks of the Week segment, but let's go ahead and give some, shall we call it, congratulations there with Tony Romo. He became the all-time leader in touchdown passes, 168 touchdown passes. He passed Troy Aikman. Aikman had 165. Staubach, I think, had 153. The difference is Staubach won 2 Super Bowls, Aikman won 3 Super Bowls, and Tony Romo, all-time leader in touchdown passes for the Cowboys, he has 1 career playoff victory. Not 1 Super Bowl ring, one career playoff victory. I mean, is that not the summation of his whole career there in Dallas, or what?
Yeah, pretty much. I was just as surprised as you when I read that stat, and that's all well and good, but when we think back to our childhood and we think of the Roger Staubachs and the Terry Bradshaws of the world, we thought they were great quarterbacks because basically they're playing each other in the Super Bowl every year.
Right.
When you look at their stats, they had great numbers, but nothing off the charts or Dan Marino-esque, or even now what the Tom Brady's of the world have been putting up, Drew Brees. You just remember those guys because they win, and I think that'll be Romo's legacy. If he doesn't, he can have all the great statistics and Cowboys records he wants, but he'll be remembered as a guy who never won the big one.
Yep, def. Okay, so you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about some of the youngsters who have come into the league too. What about the rookies of the year candidates? We'll go ahead and start with three. We'll pick this up next week as well. So all you fans there in Cleveland, we know about Richards and everything, but we're not going to cover him this week. Let's talk about the two high-profile guys, and then another who came out of the woodwork already with 1,100 yards rushing. That's Douglas Martin, the muscle hamster in Tampa Bay. But RG3 and Andrew Luck most definitely living up to the billing. And you look at it, RG3 started out kind of hot. Then you have that lull, got the concussion problems, lost a few, and now they've won 3 in a row. They're back in. Who would you say if you had to look at these three guys? Rookie of the year.
It's hard because, like everyone else, you want to be are so inclined to vote for the quarterback because it's such a high-profile position. Even looking at last week, what Griffin and Luck did yet again.
Right.
These guys don't even seem like rookies anymore. It seems like maybe their first 8 games were rookies, and now they're seasoned veterans. But I think what Martin's done is quite remarkable, and you can't discount him. He might be leading in what's going to end up being a photo finish. I mean, he's on pace to shatter a lot of rookie rushing records and kind of doing so quietly. And thanks to him, the Bucs have really turned things around. Without him, what would they really do? They'd be keying on defense would be keying on Josh Freeman like they were last year, and he's really freed up that offense down there. And on top of the fact that the guy is, let's say, diminutive, and he runs over guys like a Jim Brown or Earl Campbell size running back. The guy's got tremendous heart and no fear. So I think it'd be pretty tough. The thing with Griffin and Luck, I mean, you look at the teams that they've had and the records they're having. Not the greatest offenses surrounding them, but they've done so much with relatively little compared to some of their peers. So it's going to be a tough one, but I think December will make and break it. Andrew Luck, guy throws interceptions, nothing bothers him. Look at that comeback Sunday in Detroit.
Yeah, and I like it. And as I was talking with a few friends of mine, I said, looking at these guys playing, and even, you look at, Tannehill in Miami is obviously not going to be the rookie of the year, but were it not for these two, he'd be looked at as, a quarterback having a pretty good year there. But the next 10 years of football, I think it's set. We got these two guys. We got some good running backs coming in with Richardson down there in Cleveland as well. But it's going to come down to, like you said, these last 4 weeks. And when we look at these last 4 weeks, the NFC, when we look at the wild card race in the NFC, I mean the Packers and Bears tied at 8-4 atop the division. Then you've got the Seahawks at 7-5, Redskins 6-6, Cowboys 6-6, Buccaneers and Vikings 6-6. 4 games remaining, 2 spots available, 6 teams in the race there. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, this is what it's all about. It's what I love. And you know what? As long as Week 17's got some intrigue and maybe coming down to the wire type games, I mean, the NFL loves this, and that's what we as fans love. The one thing I will say is it's ironic how the Packers were almost written off for dead in the division race and how quickly a week can change things. The other thing I think you got to watch out for is Seattle's got 3 of their last 4 games at home, including against San Francisco. Traditionally has had struggles up there in the Pacific Northwest, like a lot of visiting teams do. And their only road game is Buffalo. So
right.
With the way they're playing at home, watch out. They could conceivably win at least 3 of those last 4 games and be in good position to snap up one of those wild cards.
Well, looking at their schedule, if we look at the Seahawks, that's 7-5. Now, obviously, if they win out, they're going to be in. But they got Arizona, coming up this week. That's in Seattle. The only game, like you said, is Buffalo on the road. Then they've got Frisco. Then they've got St. Louis. So if you were to project, that's pretty easily 3-1 coming down the stretch. And maybe with Frisco being a little shaky here and there, maybe they could sweep the run the table there.
Yeah, I could easily see it. And speaking of rookie quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, for all his detractors,
there we go.
I mean, phenomenal job driving the Seahawks 97 yards to tie the game, and then just taking his team down the field, marching on the Bears at will, running, throwing, great game-winning touchdown to Sidney Rice, who got clobbered and still managed to hang on to the game winner. So Russell Wilson doing a nice job there. I think Matt Flynn might be playing with another team next year.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's crazy. When we look at all these young quarterbacks coming in and just lighting up the league, I don't know. Are they starting to really do their homework before they come to the NFL now, or what?
I guess either that or they're watching a lot of football and or playing a lot of Madden. I don't know. It's like these guys have the playbooks memorized when they get in there.
Okay, and well, but they've got the easiest road. When I look at some of the other teams in Chicago at 8-4, but Chicago, from what I understand, they've lost Urlacher for the rest of the season. Percy Harvin is also out for the Vikings for the rest of the year as well. Ironically, those two teams play each other, but it's going to be kind of a tough road. The Bears, with that cushion, they still should make it in, but the Vikes at 6-6 and now missing Percy Harvin, even though Adrian Peterson is having a ridiculous season and still has an outside shot of getting 200 yards this year. But the Vikes, they might have some trouble brewing.
Yeah, and the way Christian Ponder's been playing lately, he's starting to look more like a rookie and not the second-year quarterback who beat the 49ers earlier this season. So, Harvin's done. They're really going to miss him. They're going to key on AP, but they may not be able to stop him. But at some point, Ponder's going to have to make passes. So, I think that train might be running out of some steam.
Yeah, and Ponder might be pondering a little bit too much before we get into the pick segment. And yes, that was a very bad joke, and I'm sorry, my joke writer was off this week.
Where did he go over to the Leno show or something to get a freelance gig?
All right, let's go ahead and get into the pick segment, the segment everybody loves, the picks of the week. We take the 7 of the better games of the week and pick those. Here you can see our season totals. I went 5-2 last week. Chris, you went 4-3. I'm now at 52-30. Chris, right on my tail, though, at 50-32 as we come down to the home stretch. We've only got 4 weeks left, 28 more games to pick, starting with these 7 this week. Then we get into playoffs. We'll figure out what the format is going to be then, whether there's a carryover, a regular season champ, and a playoff run, or what. Those rules they're just kind of getting made up as we go along.
Yeah, works for me, especially with the last couple of weeks I've had. That's for sure. And again, kudos to you for getting that Steelers-Ravens game right. And, there's a certain someone whose show I appear on every week was saying some unkind words about Charlie Batch and comparing him to the likes of Cade McNown, and I made you retract that. So don't. Oh, happy birthday, Charlie Batch, by the way, 38 years old today.
Hey, well, I got to give it to Charlie Batch for throwing a heck of a block on the running play that they got for a touchdown there. So, Charlie Batch, the thing is, it's not that he doesn't try hard. He just doesn't have that much talent. That's what it comes down to. He gives it all he's got. He just doesn't have that much to give. That's just the way it is. Yeah,
and you know what? He's been around so long. I mean, I even remember him with the Lions back in the day. You know what? The guy had a nice, solid career, but look, he's 38 years old. I don't move as well as I used to when I was 25. So got to give him some credit. I guess that's why I got so emotional on the sideline.
Yeah, that's true. But you may not move as well as you used to. But when there's no rush and you see Mike Wallace wide open in the back of the end zone, I bet you could give him a chance to drop that pass, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could have put a hit in between the numbers. I could have hit that pass.
I know. As long as my arm's not what it used to be, but I think I'm still accurate. You got me there.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the picks. We'll tell you what. You go first, then I'll pick and you pick, and we'll just kind of alternate that way. So first game, the Cowboys at 6-6, who tried their best to cough up that game against Philly, but Philly just wouldn't take it. And the Bengals at 7-5. Bengals have now won, I believe it's 4 in a row here against when they beat the Chargers this weekend. Cowboys 6-6. The Bengals at 7-5. Both of them in the thick of the playoff race. This is one of those games we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I'm going with Cincinnati. I think they realized they got a sort of a mulligan. They got lucky against the Chargers. Won a game they probably shouldn't have against a halfway decent, if it was a halfway decent opponent, let's say. And I think they're coming back home. They now realize they win this game, they're getting back in the AFC driver's seat and setting up a big showdown coming up in a few weeks in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. That one could come down to all the marbles for the last AFC wildcard spot. So I think Dalton gets back on track, as I mentioned last week. You cannot stop A.J. Green. You only hope to contain him. And judging by the way the Cowboys could barely stop Nick Foles and Bryce Brown, I don't think it bodes well for them this week.
Right, and I think the other thing is with the Cowboys, and what you're going to see is this could be the beginning of the end for the Cowboys, because after this game, they got Pittsburgh, they got New Orleans, and then they finish out against Washington. So of those 6-6 teams, the Cowboys probably have the toughest schedule. And the Bengals are on a roll here. The Cowboys are just as shaky as they always are. I got to go with the Bengals as well in this game. And really, for all the reasons you said, Bengals are going to take this game. I think they're starting to feel it. And another one of those teams where Marvin Lewis kind of called out Andy Dalton a few, right around the time Shanahan was mailing it in, seemed to, for the season. That kind of motivated his team. So I guess it just all depends on the source.
Yeah, I got to try this. Maybe I'll try and motivate my kids or some coworkers. I guess if you call people out or tell them the season or whatever the case may be is over. I mean, look, we've got 2 great instances of that. I think they should study this sort of thing in business school, don't you? Definitely,
and you, before you know it, you use this kind of approach, and you'll have your kids clean their room spotless before you even know it.
Wow, that was music to my ears.
Okay, so let's go on to the next game, the battle of the tri-state area, the Baltimore Ravens going into Washington, going into D.C., Ravens at 9-3, Redskins suddenly red hot at 6-6. So here's how I'm going to look at this game. The Ravens, as I say many times during the course of a season, I think the Ravens is just, for some reason, they're just kind of cursed when it comes down to it. They could have put Pittsburgh away last week. They couldn't do it. And when I look at what happened in that game, too, they lost T-Sizzle, Terrell Suggs. Now they're going to have to play this game without Suggs and without Ray Lewis, although I think Ray Lewis will be back for the next game from what I understand. But without their 2 best linebackers against the Redskins with RG3, I got to go with the Redskins in this game. Redskins red hot, and the Ravens having to go through a week of yet another adjustment because of a loss. I think this points to D.C. and it points to the Redskins in this game.
Yeah, normally I'd side with you, and I don't know why I'm having a George Costanza moment where if I think one thing, I need to do the other, and I just have this odd feeling that everyone's counting the Ravens out. Yeah, they're going to miss Suggs. They've missed Lewis, as we've seen, but for some reason I could just see Joe Flacco waking up. I could see John Harbaugh realizing that he's got Ray Rice in the backfield, and he's not going to burn him out if he runs him more than 20 times a game. And I think they beat the Redskins. Not a long plane ride, just shot down I-95, I'm sure, so won't be too much of a road game for them. But yeah, just kind of have this sneaking hunch that this week a different Ravens team will show up, and can't base on anything more than that. Maybe Joe Flacco will play like the player he thinks he should be paid for.
Okay, well, you know what? Win, lose, or draw, that is one of the games I got circled. I'm definitely going to be watching that one for sure.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Okay, let's go on. Next game, we talked about the Bears with their own injury problems. Urlacher is now out against the Vikings, but the game is in Minnesota. The Vikings at 6-6, clinging in that playoff race. The Bears have a little bit of a cushion, but one has their best linebacker out. The other, Percy Harvin, is out, and that eliminates that dual threat they have with Adrian Peterson. So there's weaknesses on both sides. Talk to me.
I think in a a similar vein, the Bears had a game they should have won. They let it get away from them. I know they'll miss Urlacher, but they still got a lot of studs on that defense. As I had said earlier, I'm not that sold on Christian Ponder. And at the end of the day, I'll take Jay Cutler over him, and may be closer than we expect, but I think the Bears realize they're fighting it out for that division, and they'll win.
Okay, and, I've got to go for really, when I look at this, the Bears, I think, are more equipped to deal with a little bit more adversity than the Vikings. Just the Vikings being a little bit younger team, not having fought through things like this. Cutler's been through it. Like you said, Ponder, it seems like, might be going through a little bit of a lull. So at this time of the season, with the importance of the game here, I got to go with the Bears as well.
All right.
Okay, next game, we're going to talk Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins had a chance there against the Patriots. A few mistakes early. They wound up losing that game. Dolphins at 5-7, going to Frisco to play the 49ers. 49ers at 8-3-1 because of all the problems they have with the Rams. So the Dolphins and the Niners, when I'm looking at this, the Niners, they have those games where they just don't seem to be able to put things together as well as they should. And then they have the Dolphins, who have the same type of a problem, but they don't wind up on the winning side of the ball. What I'm going to do here, though, I still have to go with the 49ers. I was thinking about the Dolphins, then I remembered the left tackle, Jake Long. He's going to be out for the season. So I think they're not going to be able to stop the pass rush quite as well. And I like the 49ers to come through in this game. It'll be a little bit closer, maybe by a touchdown. But I like the Niners to win and beat the Dolphins.
Yeah, I concur. 49ers had a brutal game last week. Kaepernick is not the greatest quarterback since Steve Young, Joe Montana, etc. Like a lot of people thought he was, but he's going to have his growing pains. And kind of a unusual twist, more for the football insiders out there. I was reading that Michael James is going to get some more playing time, so maybe Harbaugh is looking to create some sort of running back controversy in San Francisco now. But at the very least, mixing it up, get a couple other guys in there to get the ground game going, and like you said, Jake Long is going to be a huge loss for the Dolphins. So I'm going Niners as well.
Okay, and I like what Harbaugh does, because just like he did with Alex Smith when Alex Smith was in, Harbaugh is he's grooming his team for the playoffs. I can tell. That's his ultimate goal. It's like, okay, the regular season is one thing, but we need to have us hitting on all cylinders when the time comes and we're in the big postseason dance there. So I like what he's doing with the team. I like the Niners to win this week. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. The Saints at 5-7 at the New York Giants. Giants at 7-5. Talk to me. Those are your New York Giants.
Oh, my New York Giants. Oh,
yes.
Yeah, they're enough to make my head spin. As I've mentioned before in previous shows, my friend Mike from college, we were trading texts back and forth about, just feels like another game they're blowing, and they better get their act together. Very up and down. I happen to think that the Saints are probably what the doctor ordered here. Giants are in another one of those backs up against the wall, pressures on them, Cowboys and Redskins bearing down their neck. And even though old defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo comes in with his Saints, they don't put up too much of a fight. So maybe Eli and company get off the schneid. And then on a more personal level, my son's birthday is Thursday. He's a big Giants fan. They better win for him. And on a more sad note, my grandmother in New Jersey passed away this week. And while she wasn't a huge football fan by any means, my family are all huge Giants fans. So those slackers in blue better win one. How about that? All right, I'm calling my shot now. I want them winning a sentimental game for yours truly and family. How about that? All right, it makes no sense whatsoever, right? But it would be nice, because just watching Monday night's game was enough to make me get a few more gray hairs. Let's bounce back. Let's see what happens.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what you mentioned, and that's that the Saints user-friendly defense. I think is where Eli is going to really find his marks. I like Victor Cruz in the slot making plays, and then that front seven when the Giants are on defense themselves. I like that front seven getting after Drew Brees. And we all know you rattle him a little bit, he's got no problem throwing up 3, 4, 5 picks in a game. So I got the Giants getting right in this game and taking down the Saints, beating them by 10 points. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. The Giants by 10 points over the Saints, everybody.
I like that. You're like those scamdy cappers you hear on sports radio on Saturday mornings. You're giving me a margin of victory. That's impressive. I'm glad you crunched the numbers.
Okay, now the Sunday night game, the Lions at 4-8, at the Packers at 8-4. Well, is there any reason why I would think that a 4-8 team would beat an 8-4 team in the 8-4 team's backyard during a playoff stretch run? The answer is no. I got the Packers winning this game, rather handily. I think the Lions, they've had their share of ups and downs, and really, even when they play well, you saw what happened to them on Thanksgiving Day. So, starting to think a little bit, it's got to take a psychological toll on them at some point, and I like the Packers to win this game against the Lions.
I agree. No brainer. I think the wheels have come off in Detroit, as you and I correctly predicted in our NFC preview show earlier this year, I might add.
Yes.
And they're another team where I wonder, have they quit on their coach? Have they tuned him out? I just look at Jim Schwartz sometimes there on the sideline, and I just scratch my head. I don't know how you blow a lead like that to the Colts. I don't know how you throw that red flag on Thanksgiving Day. The list goes on and on. They're just a very undisciplined team. We've talked about Sue before, and there's really no reason for the Packers not to beat them, barring a catastrophe or a meteor hitting Lambeau Field, I guess.
Right, and let's all hope that doesn't happen.
Yes, full disclosure.
Yeah, we already lost the Jersey Boardwalk this year. If we lose Lambeau Field to a meteor, I don't know if I could take it.
That's right, American icons.
Okay, now the Monday night game, and this is going to be a doozy here, because there's all kinds of are the Texans really a playoff caliber team? Are the Patriots ready to make another run? I believe they both won 6 games in a row now. The Texans at 11-1, going into Foxborough to play the Patriots. The Patriots at 9-3. Talk to me.
My head tells me the Texans are on a roll. The last time I thought they'd have a tough game, they basically stormed through the Broncos on the road. But for some reason this time, look, the Texans kind of remind me of the Falcons. They're a really good team. They've got a much better defense than the Falcons, but it just seemed like one of those one-loss teams where I'm like, okay, how good are you really? And for some strange reason, the curmudgeonly, grumpy, whatever you may call him, Belichick, I think he'll scheme something to stop Foster and Schaub, and I just refuse to count out Tom Brady unless he's playing the New York Giants in the Super Bowl. So I'm going with the Patriots.
Well, you know what? I love that analogy, though. So I'll just say this. Well, I look at the magnitude of the game. I look at the two teams. So do I trust Belichick and Brady or Kubiak and Matt Schaub? And the answer is, Andre Johnson is there, I know, and of course Arian Foster in the backfield. But this is a big game on a big stage, and I think we're going to see in this game the reason why I didn't think from the start that it would be the Houston Texans going to the Super Bowl. I think they're going to go into Foxborough, and the Patriots are going to show them how to play in a big game. I like the Patriots winning this game as well.
Definitely, and to use a horse racing analogy, you bet on the jockey.
Exactly. Okay, so we're just about finished here. Any final words, Mr. Lardieri, before we go ahead and sign off?
Yeah, just once again, thanks to everyone for reading my FN Follies column. And like I said, a little more of the heavier political talk about Bob Costas this week. But, I find it amusing how Sanchez is now the starter again in New York. They've essentially made this a quarterback controversy. Greg McElroy leads the team to victory in one of the most awful games you'll ever see against Arizona. And everyone's going back and forth. Who does Woody Johnson want to start? Try as I may, every week I find myself talking or writing about the Jets and Chargers. They're really just comedic at this point. They're like the old LA Clippers, and they used to stink. It's really it's almost become sad, like I mentioned previously. But lucky for Mark Sanchez, he faces the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, so there's something to keep an eye on there. The crazy thing about it is they're still in the wild card hunt technically. Stranger things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, not much stranger. They're done.
But yeah, other than that, another thing I've observed recently with these State Farm commercials that are on all the time. Forgot to mention this last week. My kids are always singing that Raji song, and when they were watching the intros and they saw that B.J. Raji was actually a player on the Green Bay Packers, they were just beside himself. And it's funny when people know him as a pitchman for State Farm first, more than his prowess on the defensive side of the ball for the Packers. So I find that amusing.
All right, so tell you what, we've managed to go a few minutes over here, having a little bit too much fun talking about this fantastic NFL football. So time to go ahead and sign off. Chris, thanks for joining me. We'll do this again next week, everybody. Remember, you watch me live on Ustream every Wednesday night at around 8:30 or so, or just catch the replays on YouTube. So for Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr., and everybody, thanks for watching Inside Sports Production of Football Talk, and we'll see you all next week.